I'm Eric Hayden, this is the Unstatic, and today we're going to have a little love letter to Spin Doctor. We're going to talk a little bit about why this card is so important to almost every corporation deck that you're going to come up against, and discuss some scenarios where if you're just coming into the game, you might not realize how important this card is and the different things that it can enable you to do as a corp player. One of the most basic things you can understand about Spin Doctor is that he enables you to handle agenda flood. Now what that means is you might have this as an opening hand starting the game. You might have 3 agendas, no ice, no way to kind of move forward really. And so on your mandatory draw, you happen to draw into a Spin Doctor. That's great because on click 1, you can install and res the Spin Doctor, which draws you 2 cards. And now if you can stay above a hand size of 5 at the end of your turn, you can safely discard agendas into your archives. And they're safe that way because if the runner runs the Spin Doctor or your archives to go get the agenda, you can instantly remove the Spin Doctor to shuffle those agendas back in your hand. Now your turn might end up looking something like draw a card and install a Gatekeeper or a Hagen maybe in front of your HQ. And now you've done click 1, 2, and 3. And then at the end of your turn, if the runner runs something, actually at the end of your turn, you have 5, 6, 7 cards in hand. You discard 2, maybe the ICWA and the Architect Deployment Test, into your archives face down. You have 5 cards in hand. And as we said, the agendas here are safe and can be shuffled safely back in. Another important thing to understand when you're playing with Spin Doctor as a new player is that its ability to remove itself from the game happens at instant speed. It doesn't require clicks, and because of the way that remotes exist in this game, it can cause some funny things to happen. So if the runner, let's say you want to play this Dirty Laundry, and there's an easy target here that's the Spin Doctor. If the corporation player decides to use the Spin Doctor before the breach step, before the run is declared successful, then the Spin Doctor is removed from the game. Even if there's no cards here to shuffle back into hand, the Spin Doctor is removed. And suddenly this run has no server to run against because all the cards in the remote have been removed and therefore the remote ceases to exist. The run ends, and because Dirty Laundry says if that run was successful, gain 5 credits after the run ends, there is no run. It was neither successful or unsuccessful, and you don't get your 5 credits. That's important to note. Now, however, if there had been a piece of ice in front of this Hagen, and the run happens and you get through the Hagen or the Gatekeeper, whatever the ice is, and then the Spin Doctor is removed, because this ice here is still anchoring this server into existence, the run would be declared successful even if the Spin Doctor is removed. It's an important thing to know. Here's another scenario where Spin Doctor is useful. Let's say the opponent is playing a Cataloger against us. They install the Cataloger and it has 2 charges. This is a recent card out of Rebellion Without Rehearsal. They run and break into R&D. Instead of a successful, whenever a successful run on R&D occurs, instead of breaching it, you may remove 1 power counter to look at the top 4 cards, and maybe let's say they see these as the top 4 cards off of R&D. In this case, they can take the Offworld Office, put it on top, and then there's time in between this run and the next click that they can spend where they can use this Cataloger charge to access the top card of R&D. You can use the Spin Doctor when the top card is known here, remove it from the game just to cause the shuffle. And then that top card is shuffled into the deck, and if they access, they're taking a random chance to access a new card. The same concept applies for Burner or any other card that intentionally places a card on the top of the deck. Whenever the top card is known, you can use the Spin Doctor to remove that known fact and shuffle the deck. Causing a shuffle is very useful sometimes in the game, and it's often helpful to think about when you have the Spin Doctor out. Another scenario where Spin Doctor is incredibly valuable, let's say we have a face down card here. We don't know it's a Spin Doctor, or at least the opponent does, and they're playing as Essa. And one of Essa's signature cards is Shastushka, which when you run HQ, if successful, instead of breaching HQ, you sabotage 4 cards. And let's say we have these 4 cards in hand. We don't want to sabotage off the top of R&D. We just take our whole hand for some reason and we sabotage them all. Because the opponent didn't check this and trash the Spin Doctor first, we can res the Spin Doctor before they can check archives, draw 2 cards, and then use the Spin Doctor to safely remove, again, those 2 agendas and put them back into R&D. Another case where a Spin Doctor is going to be helpful is potentially baiting runners to run through expensive servers. Let's say you and your opponent are both on game point. You both have 5 points. You have the winning agenda in your hand, but you're afraid that if you put it down, that your opponent has enough money credits to get through this server and steal it before you can install advance, or, well, score it out the next turn. In that case, you could potentially use the Spin Doctor face down to install, get some money off Tranquility home grid, bait this as an agenda, and because you're playing PD, they might be suspecting that there's something like a seamless launch in your hand that will let you score it without advancing it. They have to run through the server to check this because otherwise they could lose the game if they don't. And before they reach this, you can res and see that it's just a Spin Doctor. Dropped. Potentially, if you don't have this winning agenda, maybe you draw into it, and then the following turn, you can jam the agenda, and they'll be out of money and won't be able to check it in time. That's another good use for Spin Doctors, especially if you don't have something else going on. Hopefully you can see how incredibly versatile this card is. And as a last example, I'll leave you with something that's a little bit more spicy. Let's say you are playing the outfit, and you have installed an advanced a CityWorks project, which is an agenda that is a public agenda, face up, so everyone can see what it is. And it says when the runner accesses CityWorks project while it's installed, do 2 meat damage and 1 additional meat damage for each advancement token on it. And the runner has no interest in accessing this because you're not going to win the game. You're on 0 points. This will be your first agenda. They can let that get scored, and they don't want to take 4 meat damage. You install this card here, and they think this is maybe a Rashida, and I don't want to run through this ice. Potentially it's already rezzed, and it's a Whoredom. It's going to cost them some money to get through. And so they decide to use Pinhole threading. They go into archives. Pinhole threading is a card that says run any server. If successful, instead of breaching the attacked server, access 1 card in the root of another server. If that card is an agenda, you cannot steal or trash it during your this access. So an important thing to note here is that Pinhole threading is not a may ability. It is a forced thing. You must access a card. So they run here, and this card, which they believe might be a Rashida, you res, and it's a Spin Doctor. You remove the Spin Doctor from the game, and then they breach here, and instead of accessing cards in this server, they are forced to access a card in the root of another server, and the only option is CityWorks Project, and they take 4 meat damage and are flatlined. So that's kind of a fun scenario. I don't know how realistic it is that it lands all the time, but it is something that you can think about, especially if you're playing this card or a snare or some other trap card that you want to force the runner into, and you're jamming things behind ice that they want to be able to use Pinhole to access. If you like this kind of content, then let us know. Leave a comment in the comments section of the YouTube channel that we're on, and let us know what your favorite application of Spin Doctor is. I know there's some spicy stuff out of OB that's pretty fun. That has to do with ASF protocol and one cost trashing ice walls to get your Spin Doctor to save your slash and burns that you use to fast advance the ASF and all sorts of crazy stuff. That's a lot of fun. But maybe I've missed some basic stuff. If you're a new player, let us know if this is helpful to you. If you're a veteran player, what did we miss? And if you want more content like this, where we're teaching you basics of the game and writing little love letters to cards, let us know, and we'll keep doing it. I'm Eric Hayden. Remember to run with your eyes closed, because what you can't see can't hurt you. Bye.